Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Actually, welcome to a new season. We're actually doing our first Sunday live broadcast. We've been going on live for the last year or so on Wednesdays. And we have, after some prayer and consideration, we've switched over to Monday. So we were going Wednesday, doing lives Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And now we're going to be going forward. We'll be doing these lives on Sundays at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time as well. So glad to be here with you today, as I am every time that we're able to join together. And we're just here because we can be, because we can share love and light and hope and encouragement and healing and information and knowledge that will help be empowering for all of us. And we can offer a space for us to come and connect on a spiritual vibe. And in the midst of being all over the place in different parts of the world, we're able to have this time together, this sacred time together, to experience the interconnection, which is always present anyway. And the internet connection just actually demonstrates the connection that we always share at every moment, regardless. So I welcome you who all are here today. It is good to have you in this space. Thank you for being here. It's good to be on the planet at the same time as you. And if you would be so kind, please drop a quick hello in the chat, or let me know who it is that's here. You know, I only know if you say that you're here until after the video is done. I can't even see, you know, if anybody has responded or reacted to the video or anything like that. So we're here, thankful, grateful for another opportunity. And we're just going to take a moment and just pause right now. And we want to welcome into this space. We want to welcome into this space the love and the power and the grace and the peace and all that comes with dwelling in the presence of God. And we know somehow that God is here whether we invoke God's presence or not. God is everywhere equally present. There's no spot where God is not. God knows everything. God is everywhere at all times. Okay? But we don't know everything, and we're not everywhere in every moment. And so we take this time to invoke into our awareness the presence of God, to welcome into our awareness that God is here with us right now. We're thankful for this opportunity to dwell in the presence of God, to be able to do so both individually and collectively. We welcome the Spirit of God into this place, the Spirit of love and peace and transformative power that are all aspects of God into this place, into our time that we have together today. Because truly, unless the Lord builds a house, they that build it build in vain. And so, God, we pray that you show up and work today in the lives of everybody who's here. May we feel your presence, and may your presence make all the difference in every aspect of our lives. For this we give great thanks. Ashe and amen. Okay, all right. And so today we're kind of dealing with a theme, the spiritual root of all sickness and the way of restoration. Okay, the spiritual root of all sickness and the way of restoration. Now, the reality is that, and I've seen this, you know, for a long time, that no matter what it is that we're dealing with, no matter what challenges we might be facing in life, or no matter what difficulties there might be that are showing up and manifesting themselves in our life, every single problem that we experience in the process of being human on planet Earth is the function of some spiritual issue that's going on. Okay. And when I'm talking about sickness right now, yes, I'm talking about all forms of dis-ease. That could be actually physical states of dis-ease. It could be physical pain. It could be, and when I say dis-ease, that doesn't just mean sickness in the traditional sense that we tend to think of it. But if anything has us not operating at our best, if anything has us existing outside of the realm of peace, then I'm including all of that in this. Ultimately, our goal, what it is that we are all seeking ultimately, is to enjoy dwelling in that space, that sacred space that is the sustainable state of supreme satisfaction, right? The sustainable state of supreme satisfaction, because everything that we do in life, in essence, is some way our effort to try to satisfy something within us. And we typically seek external things for our satisfaction, right? And all of those external things are conditional, they're rooted in something temporary, and therefore those external things are never sustainable. But ultimately, we're looking to dwell in that sustainable state of supreme satisfaction where we don't have to worry about it running out. And I know a little something about how we can get there, and I'm happy to share that with you. It's easier for me to share perhaps than it is for us to do it, but I want to share that with you. And so when we look at, even in terms of it in like the physical experience of sickness and dis-ease, anything that's operating inside the body temple that is not in a state of harmony, I kind of want to briefly break down a little bit of the root of that, because for the last, this is 2021, for the last at least 19 years, I've been blessed to help a lot of people have medical miracles. I've been saying that for a long time now, but still it tickles me and it touches my heart that I get to participate in that kind of thing happening, that God sees fit to allow me to participate in that. I can't ultimately take the credit for it, but it really does feel good to be able to interact with somebody who's experiencing whatever kind of situation they're experiencing, and to see that situation transformed. I feel very good about that. I'm very, very thankful for that. But one of the things in terms of this work of healing, if you will, is that I'm always looking to get to the root cause. Medication can't address the root. It can only address the symptom. Surgery can't address the root. It can only address the effect. What I'm always looking to do is to address the root cause. And so we're talking today about the spiritual cause, or the spiritual root of sickness. And this is really all sickness. Now, if you have a sickness in the body, it's because there's something in the body that is not in alignment. I'm going to work my way up. If they're experiencing some kind of sickness or dis-ease in your body temple, then there's something in your body that is not in alignment. A chiropractor, for instance, that's all their work is, to realign you, right? Okay, and they do that through chiropractic adjustments, really dealing largely with the spinal column and the central nervous system. But what they're looking to do is to put your body back into alignment, right? Okay, but anything on the physical, ultimately nothing in the physical world is ever actually a cause, all right? Everything in the physical world is actually an effect. Everything in the physical world that we experience in the physical world is actually an effect. And so we need to get to that deeper root cause. And so if there's something that is out of alignment in the body, in the physical body, and that's even if, yes, you may be wearing shoes that might throw your body out of alignment. You may have been in a car accident or sustained some other type of injury that would cause your body to be out of alignment. There could be a number of things that could have physically happened to you, but even still, those things are only an effect. Those things still aren't ultimately a cause. So if something is going on in the physical that's put it out of alignment, there's something that is out of alignment within the emotional spectrum. Okay? And if there's something that is out of alignment within the emotional spectrum, there's something that is out of alignment within the mental spectrum, within the frame of our thoughts and how we're thinking and perceiving things, and thus how we're feeling about things. And ultimately, if we're having issues with our thoughts and our feelings and thus our bodies, then there ultimately is a spiritual issue that is going on. All right? The ultimate spiritual issue that is going on, the spiritual root of all sickness and dis-ease, is feeling disconnected from or not connected to or with God. All right? That is the root of every single problem that any human being on planet Earth has ever had throughout the entire course of human history, is feeling some sense of disconnection from God. Even Jesus on the cross asked, "Why have you forsaken me?" Okay, that is part of the human experience. Now, the reality is that we're never disconnected from God. We're always one with God. And in religious terminology, there's talk about salvation. There's talk about atonement. Atonement, you break that word down, is really just at one-ment or restoration to oneness. You know, in terms of practical living out of our lives, you know, a lot of times people are longing to be in a fulfilling relationship and don't want to be single. That's an interesting thing, that word single. What does single mean? Single, actually, all that single means is one. It means one. It means whole. It means unfragmented. Okay, unfractured. And unfortunately, we have non-single people that get into relationships. That's why I'm on hold for a while. I do not have a desire to enter into a relationship before really, truly being whole, experiencing that wholeness, perfectness, and completeness within myself first. So as to not bring any brokenness into a relationship. But what happens is we shun being single. In other words, we shun our own wholeness in thinking that we can get that from outside. But what we're ultimately talking about is reaching that sustainable state of supreme satisfaction. It's sustainable only if it's rooted inside of a person, grounded within a person's own sphere of experience, right? Okay. And so we come into this human experience. Okay. This human experience can be related to, I don't know how deep I want to go with this. It could be related to the experience of eating from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Okay. It could be related to that. Hey, Melanie Ivy, good to see you, my sister. It could be related to that, to this idea that there could be something in our experience that could be perceived as something other than good. Because in the story of the creation, as is laid out in the book of Genesis, everything that God made was good. By the time God came around to making human beings, God said, "Behold, it is very good." Not just good, but very good. And somehow along life's path, along life's process, and you see in that story that, they covered themselves with fig leaves and they tried to hide from God. How often do we try to hide from God? What things in our life experiences do we try to so-called hide from God? Right? Right? How many things that we look at and that we participate in do we try to hide from God? I feel like including God in anything makes it better. From your plan making to your love making, having God in the presence of that makes it better, because God is there anyway. So welcoming God into that, letting God be the source of that really, really, really does make the difference. Okay. Hey, Dr. Kafera, good to see you this afternoon, as always. And so we end up in this life experience. We have this sense, while we're dwelling in these physical bodies that are quote unquote time bound and separation based, we experience ourselves as being separate from other people. We experience ourselves as being separate from the earth. We experience ourselves as being separate from the air, breath, wind, spirit, ruach that we breathe. We experience ourselves being separate, and in the sense of that, we experience ourselves as being isolated. Now, I'm not saying this, I'm saying this is truth that I'm speaking. It's a little bit more difficult maybe to fully embody it in one's life, because I'm not going to tell you that in the process of living alone during COVID, I haven't had times of feeling loneliness. I absolutely have. I'm not going to tell you I haven't felt times or experienced times of feeling a sense of isolation. I definitely have. But what I want to include into all of our awareness and bring as a reminder for all of us is that we really never are truly alone. We really are never really separate from others. We never really are separate from anything, in fact. And so the more that we can remind ourselves, and even taking time, when we have those moments of loneliness, when we have those moments of doubt, when we have those moments of despair, when we have those moments of deep sadness, when we have those moments of feeling cut off, in whatever kind of way, when we have those moments of feeling frustrated with whatever's going on in politics or whatever's going on with current events, that experiencing that experience is a reminder for us, or if we allow it to serve as a reminder for us, that it's an opportunity to welcome in the presence of God into our awareness, to see things and to feel things and experience things a little bit differently than we have before. All right. I have found that every single sickness and disease, and I'm talking about working with thousands of people over the course of a couple decades, every single issue that we experience of a physical nature as well as of a non-physical nature is because that's an area where we have not fully welcomed in and embraced the light of God's love into that space. All right. That is without exception. That's without exception, right? And so if we're having problems with our finances, it's not a financial problem. It's a God problem. If we're having problems with our health, it's not a health problem. It's a God problem. If we're having problems with our relationship, it's not a relationship problem. It's a God problem. Okay? Whatever the situation is, what it is that we're really wanting is God's presence in that, God's transforming power in that, God's love in that. And the frustration that we feel, the angst that we feel, the fear that we feel, the guilt that we feel, the shame that we feel, the hostility that we feel, the nervousness that we feel, and all of these other low vibrational things, we're feeling those as what it is that we're really feeling. We think that we're feeling pissed off because somebody did something to us that we didn't like. We think we're feeling upset because of somebody's behavior. We think we're feeling frustrated because of the economy or because of the person on our job, or because of the person that we have some interaction with, or because somebody is doing something that we don't like. We think that that's what it is. What it really is, that we're really feeling frustrated, angry, sad, disappointed, hurt, guilty, shameful about, or whatever that feeling is, what we're really feeling that way about is because we have allowed ourselves to step outside of who in essence it is that we really are. And that's really another way of saying, because we have allowed ourselves to step outside of our God selves, of the I've said many times before, the sacred spark exists within all of us. There's not a single human being on planet Earth that doesn't carry that sacred spark, because there's not a human being on earth that God didn't create. And so a piece of God is in each of us. I've said many times before that we're all like a drop of water in the ocean of God. We're all like a drop of water in the ocean of God, and no drop of water is the ocean in its totality, but every single drop of water contains within it all of the properties of the entire ocean, right? This is truth I'm sharing today. All right. And so as we look at the well-being of the body temple, as we look at our mental and emotional well-being and all aspects of well-being, the way that we can have those things restored is returning back to the awareness of the presence of God. Dr. Kafara says God's presence is a gift that keeps giving. I must remember not to forget. Yeah, we have to remember to remind ourselves not to forget, right? And I know that that sometimes is a little bit easier said than done. One of the things that's interesting about life on planet Earth is it gives us so many opportunities. It gives us so many opportunities to be distracted. It gives us so many opportunities to forget the truth that we actually already know, right? It gives us a vast array of life experiences, some that seem to come out of nowhere. But really, if you think of it, we all signed up for this. There isn't a soul living on planet Earth that didn't agree to come here. And I truly believe with all the gusto in my being, as my late grandfather John A. Hall would say, that there's nothing that we experience here that we didn't agree to before we came, right? That there's nothing that we experience here that we didn't agree to before we came. We knew it was going to be an adventure. There were some things that our souls wanted to experience. Why would I want to experience this heartache and this pain and this frustration and this grief, this abandonment, this, that? You know, in the human sense, none of us would stand in line and say, I'll have one of those, please. None of us would. But from the soul level, there's a greater wisdom that's in operation. And we can sometimes be, what's the word I'm looking for? I always forget this word when I'm looking for it. Not just adventurous. Hopefully it'll come to me. This word is always escaping me for some reason. Oh well, I'll let it come to me. If it chooses to come back later, so be it. If not, so be it too. Okay, but I want us to really take a moment, and anybody who's listening, whether right now on the live broadcast or anybody who catches this later, whether on YouTube or on Facebook or anywhere else for that matter, I want to encourage you to do this. We're talking about the way of restoration, okay? The way that we can return to that sense of wholeness, that sense of well-being, okay? The way that we can realign with the divine blueprint according to which we in our lives were actually designed, divinely designed, I might add, okay? The way that we can do that. Whew. And see, you know, I there are a lot of places I kind of want to go with this. I've been blessed to be in a position to share with a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. And while my background is as a Christian minister, I've had an opportunity to share spiritual teachings with people who are Jews, who are Buddhists, who are Muslim, Sikh, practice various forms of traditional African spirituality, people who practice various forms of traditional spirituality based on the people who are native to this land. They don't call it America, so I won't say Native American per se. People who would be considered as very metaphysical or New Age. I've been blessed to be able to interact, share some level of spiritual insights with people from a lot of different backgrounds. And what it is I'm always endeavoring to do, and by the grace of God, somehow I'm graced to do this sometimes. Any shortcoming of that is entirely on me. Any success with that is entirely on God. But from time to time, I've been able to be successful in sharing that even in the religious teachings, there's a greater truth that's going on beyond what's on the surface there. You know, we talk about restoration in the context of Christianity. The way of that restoration is Jesus. You look at the word Jesus and what does it mean? What Jesus means is literally God with us, right? It means God with us. And so every aspect where we're experiencing dis-ease, every aspect where we're experiencing brokenness, every aspect where we're not feeling in alignment or in a sense of atonement or at one-ment, it's because we are not operating in the awareness that God is with us. And every sickness, pain, disease, everything, no matter what part of the body it is, no matter how long it's been with us, it's because we have closed off a part of ourselves to the presence of God. And every single time I've seen miracles happen, folks. I've seen a lot of miracles happen, and I'm blessed to be able to demonstrate God as a miracle worker. I'm blessed to be able to experience that. Hey, Angela, my heart smiles to see you here. Good to have you here today. Every single time that I've been able to experience that, it's been one thing. It's been bringing in the light of God's love to purify that space through the power of God's pure love. Bringing in the light of God's love into a space where there is darkness, a space where there's been a door that we've shut to try to protect ourselves, maybe on some maybe deeply subconscious level a lot of times. But the physical transformation takes place as a result of just bringing in the presence of God into that situation, into our awareness, into that time and space. Maybe there was the trauma that happened or whatever the case might have been. Okay? And so when the Bible says in the New Testament, and Jesus is saying, I am the way and the truth and the life, yes, it's very, very, very true. He's talking from a space of awareness of the presence of God being right there. And the more that we can embody that, the more fully we can embody the presence of God into every life circumstance, every life situation, every thought. In Proverbs chapter 3, it talks about letting God lead you and direct you and acknowledging the presence of God in everything. Acknowledging the presence of God in anything. In the argument, acknowledging the presence of God. How many of us have invited the presence of God into our arguments? Have invited the presence of God into our disagreements? have invited the presence of God into the space where we're holding on to some resentment, have invited the presence of God into the space where we're having some fear. Okay. Have invited the presence of God into the place where we're having a little ego moment in whatever way that it might show up. Okay. And all of us have some ego moments, folks. And one thing about the ego is the wiser you become, the wiser your ego acts too. Your ego evolves with you. You become more spiritually mature, and then your ego shows up in your thoughts about your own spiritual maturity. I've been down that road. Don't tell me that you don't go there too, because I know you do. I've been there. I still go there sometimes and have to be reminded too. Okay. The key is really in every moment recognizing that really there's nothing about our lives that are ultimately about us. Not this physical us anyway. Not our ego selves, you know. There was something that Jesus taught that was so beautiful, so profound. And they asked him, what's the greatest of the commandments? He said, listen, and listen clearly to me here. The Lord our God is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and all your strength. This is the first and the greatest commandment, quite frankly. And the second one is pretty much the same. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you, and some of you all know me personally, and we've had some conversation about this. I did my interpretation of loving God and my interpretation of loving people. But there's this key thing that's easy to miss in that. It doesn't specifically say love yourself. It says love God with everything that's in you and love your neighbor as yourself. Okay. But then what about the loving yourself part? Well, what if the loving yourself that Moses was talking about in the Old Testament and that Jesus was talking about in the New Testament is your divine self, your capital S self, right? Right? And there wasn't a distinction that he was making between loving God with all that's in you to loving the presence of God within you with all that's in you. Right? Right? Think about that for a minute. Love the God in you with everything that's in you and love everybody else that way too. That's powerful. That's powerful. And the more we come to recognize that we really are one, the more we recognize that and bring that and saturate that into our awareness, the less we have to lash out at other people, the less frustrated we get with other people and what decisions they're making, what things that they're doing. And I'm going to tell you, it's easy to get frustrated with people in our personal lives and people that we don't even know. It's easy to get frustrated with situations that happen on earth. Whew. The reality is that there's going to be some stuff that's going to give us all many opportunities to be pissed off and frustrated and disappointed and hurt. Okay. And if I'm using a little bit strong language with the P word, I feel like I need to use that to authentically capture it the way that I mean it. So excuse me, and I certainly hope not to offend anybody's sensitivities or sensibilities. Okay. So one of the things I want to invite all of us to do right now I want us all to kind of think about a space, whether it's a physical health condition, whether it's, some physical pain that you have in your body, if it's some form of heartache, if it's anxiety, even about the trial that's going on right now, or whatever the case might be, what your child or children might be doing or might not be doing, about what may be going on with your love life or your finances, your job, what circumstances are going on with your home or your vehicle. I want you to just take a moment and kind of get present to that, whatever that thing is. I want you to just kind of focus on that for a moment. And allow yourself to feel whatever feelings come up. Even if they're like irritating or not really particularly pleasant feelings, so to speak. We're not going to leave you there, but just kind of get present to that for a moment. Getting present to that, whatever that feeling or whatever that thought is. I want you to acknowledge God as you're thinking about that. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge God, and God will direct your path. And so right now, I invite you to just acknowledge God in the midst of whatever that thing is. And sometimes we think that the problem that we're experiencing is separate from God. The problem is never separate from God. The problem is that we think that the problem is separate from God. God is not to blame for the problem, but the way to restoration from that problem, that sickness, that dis-ease, whatever it is, that issue, whatever it is, the solution is always God. The solution is always acknowledging God's presence in it. God's presence in our awareness in it, whatever that situation is. There are things that we experience in our lives that we sometimes know are not in alignment with God. And that sometimes can result in us feeling shameful, or maybe we don't want to talk with God about that particular thing. Things that we might not necessarily feel that good about ourselves. But that's all the more reason to invite the presence of God into that situation. Shame hides in the place that wants to be a secret to God. But there's no spot that God is not. It's like a little kid that closes his or her eyes and says, "You can't see me." As an adult, you know that them closing their eyes doesn't keep you from seeing them. It just keeps them from seeing you. And that's what we sometimes do. Like little children. We miss the mark sometimes. Not that we need to beat up on ourselves for it, but it is worthwhile that we acknowledge it. And when we acknowledge it, we can do something about it. We can do something better, right? We can do something better. We can make a healthier decision. Okay? How are you all feeling out there right now, by the way? Just want to check in with you all, see how you're doing. Dr. Kafera, I missed your comment earlier. From nowhere to now here. I surrender my false beliefs and separation to embrace the allness of God. Yes, yes. And see, this stuff we know. A lot of us know this stuff. We know it at least on an intellectual level. But sometimes we need to work a little bit harder at embodying it in the midst of just different life situations, right? In the midst of just different life situations, sometimes it can be easy to forget. It can be easy to get distracted. It can be easy to get off our path sometimes. I know what that's like. I've gotten off of my path. The key is if we get off the path, to just get back on the path. Just like GPS, you know, if you stop at the gas station, the GPS doesn't say, oops, you've gotten off the route, you can't get to your destination now. You just recalculate the route from where you are. If you think about something else that you want to go en route, make a wrong turn along the way, it updates the route, recalculates the route, get you back on track. And that's what we need to do. Is when we get off track, not beat up on ourselves, not continue going in the wrong direction, you know, but to, as quickly as possible, just get back on track again. You know, if we fall off, get back up again. You know, be kind of rubber butt people. If you fall on your butt, bounce back up. Melanie says, I'm feeling calm right now, inviting the God within into all my experiences today and beyond. Yes, yes, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Dr. Kafera says, I'm determined to know it. Yes, yes, yes. Well, is there anybody who is needing any additional specific support? We're glad to share. Listen, I've been blessed with the gift of healing and the knowledge thereof, and even how to teach people to access it, not just to keep it to myself, but to share it. So if there's anybody that has any issue that you're dealing with that you'd like some direct support on, you know, let me know. I'll certainly be happy to offer some support of you too, Dr. Kafera. Just let me know in the chat. We can even bring you on live if you like. If anybody has that going on. Okay, Dr. Kafera says growing through grief, and Gail says feeling anxious 24/7. Okay, so let's address that. Those are both basically emotional issues going on with Gail and Dr. Kafera. So let's kind of address that for a little bit right now. And I'm going to just make this available to anybody who wants to grab hold of it and receive it, putting that out there. And my intention, God, I know that you're a healer, that you're a restorer. You are the healer. You are the restorer. In fact, there wouldn't be any need for healing or restoration if we didn't somehow, in some way, get a little bit mixed up along the way and miss your presence there. But God, I know you to be a healer and a restorer. And I'm thankful that you blessed me to be able to demonstrate your healing power on the behalf of those listed here that have shared that they would like it, and those who didn't necessarily specifically say it but are open to it, whether now or in a playback broadcast. Neutralizing the root cause of any anxiety or emotional turmoil of any type, whether that be grief, loneliness, or anything else. from the point of the root cause of the entire energetic structure of every strand of DNA in every cell of their body, transmuting it into the joy of your presence. Yes, the joy of your presence. I bear witness to the wholeness of each of us, open to receive this on this date in this time and space called now. Thank you, God, for this gift of your divine love, and I affirm it is done. It is done. It is done. Okay, and so let us go back, and I'm just feeling led to go back to the point of birth, feeling safe and secure within the mother's womb prior to being born. And the process of being born was an extremely traumatic experience. And then all of a sudden, you've got to breathe your own air, drink your own food, go to the bathroom on your own, have somebody change your diaper. You've got to cry when you want something. All these bright lights shining in your face, somebody smacking you. What kind of way is that to come into a world? So we're going to go back to the point of birth and the birth trauma. And that feeling of disconnection that came with the cutting of the umbilical cord. Okay. And we offer the reminder that the cutting of your umbilical cord did not cut the silver cord, which connects your soul to the Most High God in all generations of time, past, present, and future. Okay. A sense of being alone in terms of no longer being enveloped, in the sense of feeling vulnerable to harm, or feeling unprotected. I want to transmute that into feeling protected, feeling safe, feeling secure. Knowing that there's a hedge of protection all around you all the time. And then also to strengthen the ability to feel and experience that hedge of protection, and return one's awareness to the fact that it is, in fact, there. Okay. All right. And we want to also look at the process of coming through the birth canal or being cut out of the womb, depending on which was the case. Okay, all that birth trauma, but even going back before there, passing through that birth canal was also, in a way, kind of similar of something like a tunnel passing through to show up in your mother's womb. As a soul landing in a body. And that sense of leaving God or leaving the presence of God, the experience or the thought of that. Any sense of grief or any sense of anxiety that can bring up. We want to resolve and neutralize that, transmute that into still feeling the presence of God. And to greater openness and greater sensitivity to the presence of God, and also to tone down the voices that speak that would try to get us to turn away from the presence of God because we think the life will be funner or better somehow. Okay. All right, Dr. Kafera, Gail, I want to kind of check in with you all, see how you're feeling. And anybody else who might want to comment to see how you're feeling, let us know how you're feeling if you would. Definitely would appreciate that. Again, I know it's on a little bit of a delay. I'll kind of make a couple other adjustments here while we're doing that. I'm telling you folks, you say, I will, Dr. Kafira, you'll what? What were you referring to? Also, if anybody ever has any questions or topics that you'd like, me to go further into at any point, put that in the comments, or actually I need to be better at going back and reviewing the comments later. I don't typically go back and review the comments after the live is over. But I'll make a point to do that. But either put it in the comments here or send me a direct message, either on Facebook or on whether on Facebook, direct message me at Royce Fletcher Thomason, or on Instagram at Royce Fletcher Thomason, or you can also, if you're watching on YouTube, you can leave a comment there too. I just have to remember to go back and look at the comments on YouTube. Okie dokie. All righty, Dr. Kafera and Gail. Okay, how are you all feeling right now, though? You feel any shift at all? I see that, Gail, you said spot on and you needed to hear that. Okay, Dr. Kafera said, I feel relieved. All right, I'm glad to know that. The presence of God is always a difference maker, I'm telling you. And there's so many things that happen that we don't necessarily consciously realize drew our attention away from the presence of God, or things that dwell deeply within our subconscious mind that we don't recognize really have a deep and lasting impact on us. As a matter of fact, a lot of what unfolds in our life is the result of what's going on subconsciously within us. Decisions that we make, particular leanings that we have, a lot of those are really strongly tied and connected to our subconscious mind. Okay. All righty. Well, if anybody else have any other comments or questions or anything like that before we leave for today, I'm always so thankful to be able to, I'm telling you all, we experience so much difficulty that shows up in just a lot of different ways in life. It's just part of being human. And really what it's all about is, in the midst of whatever comes up, knowing that God is there. And there are a lot of, it's like almost like playing a video game or something. You go through different levels, going through an initiation, you go through different levels, going through educational training, you go through different levels. And as you grow, it seems to get a little bit harder in some ways. The levels get more difficult. As your skill increases, it's easier for you to operate successfully on that level of difficulty, whatever that was. Melanie said, this was good, Royce. Thank you for helping me realize how my past I felt alone a lot. And now I realize my embrace and acknowledgement of God's presence has been the shift for me. Oh, wonderful, Melanie. Dr. Kafir said childhood trauma, you touched on and so much that needed to be revealed, to be healed. Yes, yes. You know, we all have, it's part of the human predicament. We have challenges that we experience here. The key is to learn how to gracefully navigate that. And like I was starting to say before, in the midst of all these things that come up in life, and they're there by design, the whole point is to see God's presence all the time, no matter what's going on. God's presence is the thing that always makes the difference, no matter what the situation is. No matter what the situation is. Seeing and feeling God's presence in the midst of it transforms it. The ancient Sanskrit has this word called Maya, which we typically translate as illusion. It just means that things are not as they seem. And the reality is that no matter what the difficulty that we're facing or we're going through, things really aren't as they seem. The reality is that God is right there in the midst of everything that we experience in life, holding our hand, embracing us in a warm hug, giving us the strength to make it through. There are angels that are dispatched on our behalf. A lot of times we don't allow ourselves to be aware of that. A lot of times we get distracted and we forget that God is there. We forget that God loves us. We forget that God's holding us, but God does truly love us. God really does love us, and God has great desire for us to live and be in peace and wholeness and joy, and to feel that presence and to fully experience all of the benefits that come from that profound and pure love. A love that isn't based on anything but itself. A lot of times even when we use the term unconditional love, we sometimes use it with our friends or our loved ones, our children. Really, unconditional love goes beyond a feeling. It really deals with unconditional acceptance. And God accepts us all just as we are. Even in our brokenness, when we are broken, God still sees us as worthy of love. God still sees us as good, and God is always offering, whether it's through something like today's session, whether it's through a song, whether it's through putting somebody in our path at the right time in our life, or anything else. God is always finding ways to get the message through to us. Say, I'm here. I love you. I'm here for you. I got you covered. It's going to be okay. We've been given power over all the power of the enemy. And the greatest enemy is not someone outside of you, physically or spiritually. The greatest enemy is the thoughts that we carry that tell us that we are something other than love and light, that we're something other than worthy, that we're something other than whole, perfect, and complete. That doesn't mean that there isn't stuff that we all need to work out. We all have some stuff to work out. Me too. I'm working stuff out too. But the reality is that we're all whole, perfect, and complete, just as we are. And so much of the work that we do is to let go of false beliefs that we have about ourselves and others, false beliefs that we have about in the context of our relationship with God, false beliefs that we have, rooted first and foremost in the idea that we're separate from God. But the way to restoration, the way to wholeness, the way to at one is knowing, acknowledging, accepting, and receiving God with us. Oh boy, listen. You're about to have me really about to start preaching in a minute now. All right, Melanie says, I felt heavenly during my incident this week, and I've never felt it so heavily like that before. The difference was acknowledging him in the midst with intention, and it was overwhelmingly beautiful. So grateful for that experience. That's beautiful. Somebody's commenting from a group. I'm not able to see who that is. Maybe from the Transcending the Matrix group, or if somebody shared to another group that says, thank you, Reverend Royce. Thank God to be able to serve in this capacity. I love you all. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Few of you have indicated that you got something out of this. I'm glad that you have. If for whatever reason you feel guided to support the work that we're doing, there's a Cash App thing in the comments. Appreciative if you feel so guided. I'm just happy to be able to. I'm happy to be able to have God as my employer. Friend named D-Jazz sings a song called Spirit of God Incorporated on her first CD. Shout out to D-Jazz. Where she says, I work for Spirit of God Incorporated. I'm so glad to be able to work for Spirit of God Incorporated too. Anyway, God bless you all. I love you. Remember that we might be going through things that might bring us some dissatisfaction in life, but the ultimate goal is to find our way to that sustainable state of supreme satisfaction. God bless you. I love you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.